and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now, for quite some time, hypothetically, we've been wondering just how long the comic book movie craze can last, especially when there are movies planned for 2020 and beyond. But suddenly, in the wake of Jurassic World's tremendous box office dominance, it doesn't seem like so much of a hypothetical anymore. And in fact, an increasing number of you are asking me for my thoughts on the potential longevity of the comic book genre. So I thought that would be the first story of the day for us to discuss. But before we get into that, I would like to highlight some more evidence that there seems to be a change up on the horizon as to the favored genre among moviegoers. For quite some time, it's been comic book movies to the point where we have an oversaturated market, it looks like. And I think that's one of the contributing factors to this potential fatigue, or, just people being so excited about an alternative, which Jurassic World has offered, but with no less excitement or fun factor. Now, yesterday afternoon, after I posted Movie Math for this week, there were some new developments at the box office, which got the buzz going even more so as to the fate of the comic book genre. One is that, thanks to Father's Day, Jurassic World came in higher than expected for the weekend and actually did beat the Avengers to post the number for the highest second weekend of all time, like about 106. So they beat out the Avengers by like 4 million, 3 or 4 million. So they got another record away from Marvel. But then also yesterday, they joined the $1 billion club. It didn't take long. They were so close Sunday night with like 980 million. And in just a day, they were able to make up that ground. And many of you are speculating, and I agree, that this movie could potentially have what it takes to go to 2 billion. And that doesn't necessarily mean it will unseat any of James Cameron's entries, because they're 2 billion plus. And I think it's unlikely it'll best Avatar. We'll see. Avatar, by the way, was another movie that did very strong 3D business when you think about it, and that could be the key to these really high grosses. So Hollywood is going to have to continue to be inventive to find a way to incentivize people to pony up the extra cash for the 3D screenings, and IMAX as well. Jurassic World has it all. Now, some of you would argue, except quality. And I can understand a little bit of disappointment that it's not like something like Mad Max Fury Road, right, which is breaking all these box office records. And even the first Avengers, which many of us really thought was a fantastic film, myself included, that just came together and really perfectly epitomized what it's like to be a comic book fan and reader, right? But I think that you have to look at what's on the top 10 list of all time, in the blockbusters there, and also look at Titanic and Avatar, films which certainly aren't without their flaws. But I think that one of the genius aspects of James Cameron is that he's really good at appealing to the widest group of people possible. And I think that's something that Jurassic World does as well, as we discussed before. Jurassic World might not aim for the stars and might not be a particularly ambitious film, but it's a really likable film that's easily accessible to so many people. And also, everybody's familiar with Jurassic Park. Either you saw it in theaters when it was released, when it was re-released, when it was re-released in 3D, or you've seen it played on TV, a gabillion times, right? So it's like super saturation. And even people who don't usually go to the movies are finding themselves purchasing a ticket for Jurassic World. And that's when a movie makes this amount of money. When it's not movie fans going, but that's how you make this much money, as we've discussed also with, recently with Jurassic World, but I just want to reiterate it here. It's when you convince people to go to the movies who don't usually go. That's when you open up these floodgates of cash. Now, a really funny meme that was sent to me with a bunch of other people, I was included, thank you Jason Phillip, BTT viewer, for thinking of me, but he sent out a meme, and I wanted to show it to you here. Well, it's not really a meme, but it's, because there's nothing written on it, but there's a really funny doctored picture here of putting together the first shot of Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man from the first Avengers, and putting it in together with Chris Pratt taming the velociraptors. And I just thought that was really great. I thought that was a really clever way to kind of like address what's going on here visually. And that Chris Pratt, ironically, from Marvel no less, has kind of snuck in here and is taming superheroes, right? He's like, I got this, I can control them. And velociraptors are cool. If you got to be a dinosaur, if you got to be compared to a dinosaur, a velociraptor's not a bad choice. But I do think that jokes like this I think allude to a changing of the tide. Just like I think the comic book movies, they're not going to go away, but I don't think they're going to be quite as dominant maybe as they once were. And also, thankfully, we're going to see Hollywood start to develop other types of films now that they see that other types of films can unseat a comic book film. I think for a while there, Hollywood was convinced the only thing that could beat a comic book movie was another comic book movie. But I do think that comic book films are going to get darker, especially when DC, I think, comes on the scene in 2016. So I think that's going to be another series of hard knocks for Marvel. And it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. As for this situation, they put out that very nice, their own little Twitter picture. Kevin Feige had Chris Pratt riding a dinosaur with his shotgun, and the Avengers all being like, "What's going on?" But I also think that's a little nod to the fact that they, of course, I think on all extensive purposes, discovered him. Now that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about people's anger that Jurassic World is so high up there on the list and breaking all these records, particularly Marvel fans. I don't quite understand, so I'd love to see it explained down below, why you're so upset about Jurassic World getting all these records. I mean, again, I know it's not a perfect movie, but I think it's not an offensive film. It's a fun movie, As I said, I think it's the best sequel they've had to Jurassic Park yet. And I think that it's given us Chris Pratt movie star. And I think that at the end of the day, it's really nice to see so many people going to the movies, having a good time. That's very good for the movie industry. It's good for other movies. And I think it's great to see Chris Pratt become, I think, probably one of the biggest stars in Hollywood right now. And kind of an old-fashioned movie star. We haven't seen one of those in a long time, and it seems that it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, right? So I don't see what's so offensive about, Jurassic World doing so well. And I think that it even makes the film overall look a little better. It's flawed, but everybody loves a winner, right? The other thing I wanted to talk about was this thing about Star Wars. I think that the Star Wars situation, Marvel fans are like, man, we are losing, record after record to Jurassic World. So there's this new thing that's emerged where everyone's like, okay, well, enjoy it while it lasts, Jurassic World, because Star Wars is going to blow you out of the park. And maybe that'll happen, although as many people I think are accurately pointing out, December really isn't the time of year to post a huge opening like they do in the summer, which is Hunger Games posts very high numbers in the fall in November, so it's doable. But one of the reasons that so many blockbusters open in the summer and why Star Wars is going back to a summer release date with Episode 8 is because it's just more conducive to moviegoing, right? Nobody's in school, it's hot outside, everybody has time off, they want to just go peace out in a movie theater. But in the holiday season, you've got a lot to do, you have shopping, it's cold, maybe there's a snowstorm, and of course there's Oscar season as well with all those films coming out, the quote-unquote important movies. And also, we'll see, if Star Wars is able to convey that it has a fun factor, right? I mean, if it seems too fanboy-esque in its advertising, I wasn't a huge fan of the second trailer, it has to be the type of movie that gets everybody to go, right? Everyone has to be sitting there going like, you know what? I never go to the movies, but I'm going to go now. And they've already done that once this year. And that's another problem. Some of you, I think, very cleverly and were savvy to point out on Movie Math yesterday, and I saw it in the comments, one of you in particular said that, people only have so much money to spend on movies, and if they've spent it on Jurassic World, or if that's the movie they've decided to go and see this year, what does that mean for not only the other movies coming out this summer, but also, of course, Star Wars? All right, so that's the first story of the day. I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts on that, and I think it'll be interesting to see how Marvel and the movie industry as a whole adapts to this new information from audiences. Whenever you buy a movie ticket, you're voting, and a heck of a lot of people have voted to see something other than a superhero movie. So I think that's fascinating. Although I think that Joss Whedon didn't do superhero movies and Kevin Feige didn't do them any favors by putting out Avengers Age of Ultron, which wasn't a bullseye. I loved it. Many of you loved it, but I think we can't deny that a lot of people did not like it. And I think that's adding to, I think, this feeling of maybe it's time for another genre to step forward. And of course, everyone has their fingers crossed for video game movies. Now, speaking of Marvel, they're down, but they're not out. And they're putting together their Black Panther movie. Now, as some of you pointed out this morning on Movie Minute, the Vanity Fair article had to say, okay, it's not official. So Ava DuVernay apparently is still in talks to direct Black Panther. We'll see if that deal comes together. I think she would be fantastic. And then also, the reason I put this all in one category is that, at first when I was thinking about the Beyonce story, I was like, oh, she could be Medusa. Isn't that funny? She's got the hair. I thought that was like a fun joke. And then also, Vin Diesel's going to be Black Bolt, so you could see Beyonce being his, potentially be Black Bolt. This movie's taking place so far from now. But, potentially Beyonce could be his Medusa. But then I thought about it more and more, and I was like, I also thought, as I said in Movie Minute, that she'd be potentially a nightclub singer like in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, like somewhere in nowhere, right? You could totally see that happening. I think that would be a very good use of Beyonce, because as we've all pointed out, she's not a great actress. So I think that Marvel using her would be more in the lines of using Glenn Close or Robert Redford. Of course, Beyonce's peers. Beyonce, I have tremendous respect for her in the music industry. Not so much in the acting Hollywood industry. But I think that it seems like that, more like that kind of casting. I don't think she'd be a lead. But then I thought about it, and I was thinking about it while I was preparing my notes for this episode, the Morning Movie News, and I was like, you know what? What if she played like Black Panther, aka T'Challa's mother, right? To flashbacks when he's younger. Maybe she could be a member of his all-female royal guard, right? That would be a good way to use Beyonce. And I'm not sure if this is a good idea or not, because what really reminded me of The Princess and the Frog, also from Disney, where they put Oprah in the role of Tiana's mother in a way of kind of being like, hey, we know this is, new ground that we're treading, but here's a safety net, Oprah! And so I feel like they almost might be doing that with Black Panther, being like, Beyonce! Who doesn't love Beyonce, right? I'm sure Oprah's like, what? You gotta put me in this movie too! I could play T'Challa's mother and Beyonce could be his royal guard. And I feel that while I think both obviously do have their fan bases, I think that it has a little bit of an air of desperation about putting that kind of casting in there, right? It's almost like you don't believe enough in the property itself that you kind of have to have a very obvious overture to audiences, which I find a little concerning. And I think it leads to a bigger question, and that's how are you going to make Black Panther accessible to a mass audience? Now, of course, Empire is a very successful show which has a largely black viewership. But for a movie to post the kind of numbers that a Marvel movie needs to post, it needs to get everyone. It needs to perform like a Fast and Furious movie where everybody wants to go. And Ava DuVernay, while she's extremely talented, I think that I don't know if she's able to do an inclusive type of film. I loved Selma, but you can't deny that Selma did not really do well at the box office. So many people, so many special interest groups had to make it so that you could see Selma for free to try and make people go and see that movie. That's how hard it was to get people to go and see Selma. I had a heck of a time getting you guys to see Selma. How many of you have still not seen Selma? And I'd be curious to know why not. So I think ideally they obviously want Black Panther to perform like, not Empire, but The Lion King, right? That everybody went to see, but still at the same time celebrated African culture. And sadly, one of the ways to ensure that is to have at least one strong white character, right? The Lion King had almost an entirely white voice cast when it came to the lead roles. Which I think is something that is conveniently left out and, was kind of like, a little underhanded on Disney's part, being like, yay, celebrate African culture, but Simba's voiced by Matthew Broderick. And you're like, what? So here, you can't do that, obviously, because it's a live-action film, and Chadwick Boseman, who I'm a big fan of, has yet to, really be a movie star and also get a lot of people to go into the theater. So it's a very tall order placed in front of him. He has not proven himself to be a Denzel Washington or a Will Smith, and that's kind of what you ideally would like to have here. But I think that no one really has emerged to replace either of those individuals. Maybe Kevin Hart, but you obviously can't have Kevin Hart play, Black Panther. And even Idris Elba, not much of a box office star, although also has a lot of fans. So I wouldn't have, obviously, like a lead white character, but I think they need to have like a strong supporting white character just to balance this out and to, I think, make sure it has broad appeal. And the person I thought of who would be, I think, not offensive and would work with the property instead of contrasting with it and pulling focus from T'Challa would be Martin Freeman, professional supporting actor. And his character, obviously, whoever he's playing, it's rumored that he's Henry Gyrich in Civil War, and they're going to introduce Black Panther in Civil War. So wouldn't it be nice if Martin Freeman would carry over into the Black Panther film? Also, it's been, I believe, there's some, Andy Serkis, of course, will obviously be in the movie as the villain. That's good, but nobody pays to see Andy Serkis, especially when he's doing live action. And, I think Daniel Bruhl might potentially, he might actually be in he's in Doctor Strange. Yeah. You never know where these characters are going to show up. I think Daniel Bruhl is the new, I forget his name. It's not Strucker. Strucker's from X-Men, the X-Men universe. But the guy who was, the Baron that was running the operation at the beginning of Avengers: Age of Ultron. I think Daniel Bruhl is the new version of that character, basically. Poor Daniel Bruhl. But I think Martin Freeman would be a great option to put in there. I think he's very good at playing a supporting actor, and I think that it would balance out the cast well. So I'm curious, what do you think of the way Black Panther is coming together? Do you think this is something that can be an inclusive property that everybody wants to go and see? And I know some of you might take offense at that, but I urge you to put your business hat on and be like, okay, how am I going to entice, moviegoers to go and see this film, right? But at the same time, be respectful of the character of T'Challa and the African heritage of Wakanda, right? And what do you think of the stunt casting of things like Beyonce, potentially, and also Oprah when they bring her into films like this? Although I have to say, in The Butler, Oprah was amazing, and I felt was robbed of an Oscar nomination. So Oprah is no Beyonce in terms of the quality of her acting. All right, so the third story of the day, speaking of white guys, it's hard to get more white than Michael Keaton, right? The guy's like living mayonnaise. And I'm a big Michael Keaton fan. I'm really hoping that he is successful in this comeback bid. He's not quite Matthew McConaughey level, but there are those of us rooting for him. But not a ton. I think that while Matthew McConaughey had Hollywood, just the full weight of Hollywood behind him, I think Michael Keaton, doors are now open to him. But I guess the doors are now unlocked to Michael Keaton, and he has to open them himself. So he's going to be in the upcoming McDonald's film, the founder, about the founding of McDonald's. He's also going to be in Skull Island, along with J.K. Simmons and Tom Hiddleston. What a cast! But he's also putting together a film that he's going to produce and star in from Boom Studios. Boom Studios is on a roll. We just recently talked about the Lumberjanes, and full disclosure, Boom Studios is the publisher of my comic book Superbia, which one of you actually just purchased the other day and tweeted me a photo of it, so thank you so much. It's a trade format right now. 16 issues of it came out. But anyway, this is called The Imagine Agents. And this is about agents who police imaginary friends, children's imaginary friends, especially when they get out of control. So Michael Keaton would play a veteran agent who's training a newbie on a day that goes horribly wrong. So the question is, would this be Men in Black, which is obviously what they're hoping for, or would it be R.I.P.D., which is what they're obviously not hoping for? But I would go one even further, and I would harken back to a time long ago, and that would be Cool World. I don't know if anybody remembers Cool World. It starred Brad Pitt, was one of his first movies, and Kim Basinger. It was a little bit along the lines of, I think Monkey Bone was the movie with Brendan Fraser as well. Back when they were first look, Walt Disney, of course, originated it with his Alice in Wonderland shorts when he started out his career way back in the 1920s. Maybe even, I think the 1920s is a safe guess. But anyway, they kind of did this fun interaction of animation and humans. And so I'm wondering if maybe they'll go with that. But it's a tough call, and I think it'll be interesting to see if they can balance out kid humor with adult humor, right? I mean, that's always a tall order, especially in a live action film. Animation has almost perfected it at this point, but I think we haven't quite seen it done well in live action. But I think it's a good property for Michael Keaton, and so again, you see he has to produce it himself to make sure that he has projects coming down the pipeline. Now, as for the viewer question, Sabine Sheridan, by the way, happy birthday, Sabine. Sabine wrote the best case ever for why I should answer her question today, and she persuaded me. All right, so let me read you the question. So it says, Dear Grace, tomorrow is my 15th birthday. Again, happy birthday, Sabine, and I'm going to see Mad Max Fury Road again. I loved it so much, I named one of my stuffed dragons Furiosa. Since I've been watching you for 4 years, this makes up a quarter of my odd-numbered life. Anyway, how can I deny that, right? Anyway, I would like you to answer a question in desperate need because it's related to the upcoming Smosh movie in July 27th. Do you think YouTubers can get into the film scene and start their own phase? Do you think films like Smosh the movie would be popular at the box office even though Smosh is already popular on the internet? Do you think their humor would bring in audiences or turn them off? Basically, can YouTubers star be on their own channel and even in other people's films? I have more time to watch your show now that it's summer. I love your channel. You're my all-time favorite YouTuber because your channel is so engaging, intelligent, and entertaining. And then she puts a smiley face. She says times 100. So Sabine, you are very good. You're very good. You could be a lobbyist. You really got my attention there, and I'm happy to answer your question. And again, happy birthday. So I would say that first off, I think that they're going to have to kind of, YouTubers, if they want to be like legitimate movies, they're going to have to kind of come in from the side. They're going to have to sneak in from the side. Because I looked up the Smosh movie, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it. I just have a feeling that it's like maybe Smoosh? No, Smosh. Okay, so Smosh, it's a digital, I mean, I don't know if it's getting any theatrical releases, but overall it's a digital day and date. It's going to be available on iTunes and Vimeo. So it's not, and I looked up the company credits, and it looks like 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment is releasing it in the United States. So I don't know if it's even going to get a theatrical release. And then Lionsgate is handling the worldwide rights. And if you go to their website, you can even pre-order the movie on Vimeo and iTunes. So I think a digital release is probably the only thing Hollywood's going to really greenlight right now where a YouTuber is a star, because they're like, well, your audience is digital, so it makes sense that they would want to watch your movie digitally. So I think that's where they're going to start, you know, when they're the upfront stars, and then they're going to have to really wow people with their numbers. They're going to have to post really huge numbers, maybe potentially on Netflix, that could be another outlet, but they're going to have to wow Hollywood, and Hollywood's going to have to go there so much interest that maybe we should put them in a movie. But even then, I think it's more likely that you'll see them in supporting roles. For instance, I was so impressed with the work that Flula did in Pitch Perfect 2. Flula was amazing. And Flula not only, I think, brought obviously his fans to that film, and the film did very well. I don't think it's entirely due to Flula, but I'm sure he contributed to it. But what really impressed me about Flula is that his performance was on par with the strongest performances in the movie. He didn't hold it back. You weren't like, why is he in this movie? Oh, because he's a YouTuber and they want him to bring in his viewers. No, he was just as good as everybody else, and that was a very competitive cast because there were so many strong performances in it. But Flula more than held his own, and I think he was very, very impressive. And if I was a Hollywood casting agent or producer or director, and I was making another musically themed film, I would be interested perhaps in having Flula in the film. I would at least explore it. So he did a fantastic job. So I think that's where this is going to have to work. And also you're going to have to get someone, a real genuine studio, to take a chance on a YouTuber in a theatrical release. And I don't see that happening because just the way Hollywood thinks, they're like, well, your audience is digital, so let's keep you in a digital platform. And I think the only way that would break if you have a breakout hit, almost like the Borat of the internet, where they're like, so many people are watching this. It would have to be like, I can't believe I forgot his name. That's how fleeting internet fame is. Gangnam Style. Remember that? That was so popular that guy crossed over into the mainstream. He had TV appearances. He met all these big celebrities. He was having concerts in real life. And I think that because he had so many hits. Justin Bieber had so many hits. That's why he was able to cross out of YouTube. Now, of course, people like Smosh have a lot of hits as well, but I think that music is very different than movies, and I think it's also like ego, etc. Because you'd be taking a job away from a traditional comedian. So we'll see what happens, but I hope that gives you a little more insight into the situation that YouTubers are likely facing when it comes to breaking into movies, and we'll see how the Smosh film does when it's released on July 27th. All right, also I'd be interested, last question, how many of you plan to download that film? All right, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you so much. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching.